All right, so this is my Tikka T3x lite in a stainless. It's got a couple simple things. It's not a custom gun by any means, but I wanted to share a few things about it. So what I want this for is to be a mid-range, maybe out to 600 and something-ish yards, bigger game, backcountry gun. I wanted it to be light. I wanted it to be accurate, but I still wanted to be able to reach out there. So what I chose is a Tikka T3x Lite in a 270 WSM. This type of hunting I'm talking about would be like mountain goat in Colorado, Rocky Mountain bighorns, a tree line, have to hike in there 7-8 miles to a really secluded spot. So I wanted the entire setup to be with a bipod under 8, and I wanted without the bipod, I wanted it to be 7 pounds. So this is actually 7 pounds with scope, with magazine, with everything. I think once you actually load up the magazine, it's a little over 7 pounds. But so it's actually just a normal stock. But I did put on the more vertical pistol grip, which I like. I added a limb saver pad because I load this thing hot with a little heavier bullet, so I wanted it to be a little smoother on the shoulder. Actually has an extended magazine that I kind of custom made, which I'll get to in a minute. Adjusted the trigger down to about as light as it goes. According to my measurement, it's roughly 2 pounds. Pretty consistent, pretty crisp. It's in a stainless, since I wanted this to be in a backcountry rig that I take backpacking and it sees a lot of weather. I chose a Leopold scope, mostly for the durability, plus it's lightweight. This was literally the lightest scope I could find that was in a 4.5 to 14 power, or close there too, with a turret. It was the lightest one. This thing comes in at 13 ounces. Everything else I found was 16 ounces or more. Rings are Tally lightweights, ultra low. So Tikka's, the rings, at least from Tally, sit really high. I bought some mediums thinking that would work. Yeah, that wasn't even close. Thing was sitting way too high. So I like it pretty low like that. That's my personal preference. In fact, if I could get this thing lower, I would prefer that, because I like to smash my cheek down. I don't know, maybe I will add a cheek riser to that, but I kind of don't want to add stuff to this thing since it gets thrown in and out of backpack scabbards and whatnot. I do still have the throw lever on there. I personally like a throw lever. I understand why someone wouldn't, but I like the quick zoom ins while hunting. It has the zero lock on it. So, I mean, it's just the VX3 HD 4.5 to 14. Pretty standard, easily found scope. I think it MSRP's in the mid 600s. So the camo job, which I get asked on, is actually done by myself. It's a sponge job where you basically spray some spray paint onto a piece of cardboard, dab some sponge on it, and then just start dabbing. So the background color is black, obviously from the synthetic stock, but then I used FDE and olive green, basically, just those two colors. The camera seems to really highlight the tan, but the green kind of pops in person too. The bipod, I have a bunch of bipods. I kind of swap them out whenever I want, to whichever I choose. But so a real basic setup. I didn't modify a whole lot other than the magazine to get this. So as far as the sponge job goes, this is pretty much all I did. I just bought this Brownells Alumahide paint. It's pretty thick epoxy stuff. It's pretty good spray paint. Very durable. I've spray painted a few different stocks over the years. This stuff is by far and away the strongest stuff. And then I just bought some sponges that look like this off of Amazon. And honestly, I just cleaned up the stock with some acetone, sprayed some very thick spray paint onto a piece of cardboard, dabbed that in it, and then went to town. You know, really how you want the camo depends on how hard you push and how splotchy and how consistent. I wanted more of a homogeneous look. So this is another stock that I did, pretty similar. I just pushed a little harder and made it a little more dense. I decided that I wanted to make a little bit less black on this one. But I mean, you can really design it how you want. You can make it look like this stock over here. This obviously isn't my own sponge job, but this is actually a different stock with a different camo pattern, but you can do it like that. You just put it on heavier and push the sponge harder and then make it, you know, zones of different colors if you like that style. I think in some ways it looks cool. On to the custom thing about this magazine. So Tikka actually doesn't make a WSM magazine that's extended like that. However, this is a WSM magazine that's extended. So this actually fits 4+1, and I can show you right here that it fits 4. So there's 1. 2, 3, and 4. 4 in the magazine right there. So that right there is the only 4-round WSM magazine that I know of. Now, how I did this was I took a regular WSM magazine. Now, the difference is that they actually make specific WSM ones because they're so wide that they don't fit very well into the regular long-action magazines. This top half is a regular long-action magazine that has a short-action follower in it because it's the parts left over from my build. But when you push this in here, it really rubs along the sides and doesn't want to feed right. Obviously with the follower in here not being the right size, it's kind of jacked, but it kind of rubs. And so you'll read stuff that says if you want a WSM magazine in a long action, because a lot of these Tikkas, the throat in here is really deep. And so if you want to push the bullet out close to the lands, you can't do it with the short action magazine. So you need a long action one. Well, the long action magazine does rub. And you can get an extended mag in the regular long action like this, but it's gonna rub, and I tried it and it didn't feed very well. So here's what I did. I took the top half, this top half, off of the long action magazine so that I was left with the extended part. Then I took the top part of the WSM magazine, and there's a little divider that's right in here that's basically just a plastic block off, and I took a Dremel tool and slowly trimmed it back. And if I take these out, you'll see, excuse me, you'll see exactly where I did it. Let's see if I can get this thing to focus on it. You might be able to see down in there. Let me get my finger in there. That's trimmed up. Just try and shape it with the same lip so it doesn't pop out. But I slowly but surely removed that. Then I took the long action follower and spring, popped this thing on there after modifying it, and voila, you have a extended 4+1 WSM magazine. And it fits in there nice, feeds pretty well. I will say that the follower, if you really just jerk on it, can actually tilt down a little bit and cause some feeding issues, but if you're smooth with the action, it goes in pretty well. So that's how you make a custom Tikka extended magazine for a WSM. Another thing you need to do if you're going to do this modification on a WSM is all Tikkas are the exact same action. They're all the same length. There's no such thing as a long action versus short action. What they do is if it's a short action, there's a stop on the bolt stop here. Got your bolt catch right here. That is what prevents your bolt from traveling all the way back. So on this thing originally, on the stock WSM, only went back to about there. However, after I trimmed it, which is a pretty standard modification, you don't have to trim it. You can actually buy a bolt catch from Tikka or in the aftermarket that allows long action to scoot all the way back. But since your magazine now doesn't have that block off, leaving the bullet further forward, so your bullet scoots all the way back, or your shell scoots all the way back, you need, to catch it, you need this to go all the way back. So you can just take the action out of the stock, and that bolt catch is held in there with a roll pin. You beat out the roll pin, you take this off, and you just trim it back. They're actually marked with another line of exactly where to go. There's lots of instructions online for how to do that, how to turn your short action into a long action. I mean, it's all the same action, right? But it's just a bolt catch that allows it to go all the way back. That's how Tikka makes these things pretty premium, or more premium for a cheaper setup. All right, so here's a demonstration of this thing feeding. 4 in there. Sometimes you got to make sure with these Tikkas that the rear goes up first, then click in. So if I feed it, so there you go. Ejects well, feeds well. Very short ammunition in a long action magazine. Still does well, I think, because of that single stack design. So now you got 5 rounds with a WSM and a pretty light package. Kind of hard to beat.